Welcome to another episode of ContractorCast. Today we're talking about brand versus logo. Stay tuned. So one of the biggest questions that companies need to ask themselves is, do you have a brand or do you just have a logo? And a lot of people get confused with thinking that their logo suffices as their brand. And that couldn't be any further from the truth, really, because what a logo really is a mark or an identification, a visual identification of your company. And yes, people know, maybe what that looks like, and they may recognize your symbol, or if they see it on a truck or a billboard on a park bench, they know what your logo looks like. But your brand is what people talk about when you're not present. This is what people pass along to their family and friends, and that a lot of home service contractors talk a lot about word of mouth, and that's very true because reputation is everything, recommendations are everything, and so your brand is really what people talk about when they refer you to their friends and family, because they are talking about how you do your business, what's important to you, how you perform customer service, and on and on and on. And ultimately, it's your brand is the perception of what people have about your company, right? It's basically how the public perceives your company. That is your brand. And if people perceive your brand to be untrustworthy, then that's your brand. Even though you have a logo that stands out, you may have the coolest logo in the world, but your brand is that you are an untrustworthy business. Or the reverse of that can be true as well, right? You could have a very nondescript logo, but your brand is that you are super trustworthy, always on time, super high quality workmanship. That's your brand. So there are a couple of things that we like to sort of bring to people's attention when we started getting into this brand conversation, because ultimately, especially when people come to us and they want a new website, a lot of times they're also looking for some new, they're looking for a fresher look, right? Whether it's, and that encompasses your logo. But ultimately, people also want a cleaner brand. And your brand can't be solved with, a prettier logo, right? That doesn't enhance your brand. Your brand has to be something that you dive into and determine internally. You ultimately have to think about what you want your customers to think of your company when they come in contact with you. What emotion do you want customers or potential customers to feel or to think? Your logo reinforces that brand. So when someone sees your truck with that great looking logo, from the brand perspective, you want customers to feel or think trustworthiness, right? Like you want them to think, man, that company right there they're hardworking guys. They do excellent work. That would be your brand. And so it's very important. We have other videos where we talk about this, but when you first come in contact with a customer or potential customer, how you treat that person, from the phone call to the email follow-up, to arriving on site, that entire experience shapes what someone thinks about your brand. And it's important that, you're always putting that customer first and that you're always striving to get the most out of your brand. Yes, there are chances where things can go wrong, but what do you do to fix those things when they go wrong? How open are you with communication? Those things really go to reinforcing, someone's, strong belief in your overall brand. And your brand is also something that people think about when they pass that information on to their friends and family. So when they are, boasting about their new AC or their new landscaping or whatever the case may be. So yes, they're excited about the work that they had done on their house, but they're also talking about the experience that they had. And that is what the referral is all about, because they are referring your brand. They're not telling their friends and family about a specific logo. They're telling their friends and family about the work that you did and how your company represented itself to them and what their experience was like working with you. So your brand really has to be an extension of your company's personality, your values, your goals, even your beliefs, right? So this is what you really want people to, goes back to my earlier saying of the emotion that you're looking to strike with people when they think about your brand. So one of the cool exercises that you can do to kind of determine what your brand is or what it should be is to think of your company as an imaginary person. right? So, what's their personality like? What clothes do they wear? What is their home like? So you're trying to determine what characteristics your company has, and that ultimately formulates your brand. And if you can answer questions like that about, how you want to go out into the community and be perceived, maybe you're the company that all your guys wear overalls, and that differentiates you. But that's a portion of your brand, that this is how they show up, this is how they do their work. You know, we're always 5 minutes early, whatever the case may be. These are the characteristics of your brand. And so once you have those non-visual components down, your personality, feelings, emotions, etc., then you can move into the more physical ingredients of your company's brand. And those are going to be, what colors you have, your fonts, the shapes that you're using, the shape of your logo, the wording in your logo, the taglines, all those things. They reinforce your brand, right? So you can model those physical ingredients around your brand that you've determined you want to be. And each of those physical elements should, make a specific statement about your company. Colors can evoke a really strong emotion in people. Red, white, and blue, for instance. So people who are very patriotic can really tie into your business, your brand, because they get a sense that you're patriotic as well, that you're a patriotic type of company. And that may be part of your brand, that you are very supportive of veterans and of the military community and first responders, that kind of thing. The next thing you're looking at is going to be your messaging, and you want that to really bring out your company's personality. Are you going to be a witty company? Are you going to be a very playful company? Are you going to be a very earnest company? You want to make sure that messaging, again, corresponds with your brand. The next physical attribute that we would look into would be shapes. So again, shapes can have a very different meaning. Hard edges and angles convey strength, whereas round edges can be perceived to have a softer tone. So again, we want to have some consideration, again, going back to your original identity of your brand, to make sure that the shapes match your brand as well. Fonts are the same thing. There are a lot of different fonts out there that evoke different emotions in people. If your brand is retro, then you would want to find a font that matches that. If your brand is more futuristic, you want to find a font that matches that. If your brand is a really strong brand, you want to find a font that matches your strength. So there are a lot of different, again, fonts play a big role in, again, what people see. This is again goes back to the visual components that we're talking about. But we want to make sure that those things are corresponding with your overall brand. And next is going to be your tone of voice. So your tone of voice is going to show whether or not you're compassionate or not. So when you're picking up that phone to answer that customer's question, or that potential customer's question, you really need to make sure that the first person that comes in contact with that potential customer is evoking your tone that you want for your company. Are you soft and compassionate, or are you hard line and a lot of people think that. People can think that when you talk to people up north, they're much more hard line than when you talk to people down south, because they tend to be more jovial and they tend to be more laid back. So you really want to make sure that your tone matches your brand identity as well. So all of those elements have to be combined to contribute to your overall brand. And you want to be consistent with these things that I just mentioned across the board. So again, your radio messaging, your website messaging, colors, shapes, your trucks, all these things have to be tied together and have what we call brand consistency. You want to make sure that people are seeing the same thing visually everywhere that they turn, whether they see you on Facebook, find your website, see you on a park bench, or see your truck driving down the street. You want to make sure that visual, those visual elements are consistent, and again, that they reflect your overall brand. And companies like ourselves, we use those branding blocks to build your overall brand, right? We want to make it consistent, make your brand identity very easily recognized in your surrounding community, because the visual elements is what your audience or your potential customers use to identify who you are, right? So those things evoke the same emotions. So when they're seeing your visual representations, they're thinking about your brand messaging that you've been conveying on other things that you've either been advertising to them, or that they've heard via word of mouth from friends and family who've used your business, and it all ties together. And so this brings us to the original question, right? What is the difference between brand and logo? And they're very closely tied together. Your logo is a very important part of your overall brand identity, because visually it's going to be the first thing that people see if they don't know you. You know, if they're just seeing you for the first time, and if it's again, as I just mentioned, if it's an ad on Facebook and they see your your visual representation and your logo, you want that to speak to them as well, right? And but then again, when they come in contact with you, you want them to again identify with your brand messaging and making sure that you're going after the types of clients that you're wanting to have. So in the home service contractor space, there are really just a few characteristics that are really, really important to people being able to identify with your brand on a large scale, right? You don't want to just appeal to a very small group of people. You want to appeal to a broader group of people so that your potential customer base can be as large as possible. And the things that people mostly look for in, again, home service contractors is going to be, their speed. How fast are you guys, answering the phone, getting to the job, getting things done, your cleanliness and your professionalism. You don't want guys showing up completely dirty from a previous job. Ultimately, people are inviting strangers into their home, and they don't want to invite someone who's not clean and professional. So you definitely want to make sure that those aspects of your brand are taken care of. That your texts are representing your brand to their fullest, as well as honesty and fairness. People want to make sure that they're getting taken care of. I think that goes without saying that customers want to know that they're getting high quality work at a fair price. And so a logo can tie in all of those things. It can tie in a sense of stability, authority, and trust into one logo. So all those things go into our thought process when we try to help our clients, go through the process of getting a new logo or redesigning their existing logo, because you really want to make sure you capture all these elements in your logo, because that's just how important it is. Again, your logo isn't your brand on its own, but it's a very, very, very important piece that ties in very closely to your overall brand identity. And another thing on logos is that you really want it to be able to stand on its own. If someone just sees your logo, because a lot of times that's, you can get your logo on something and you can't necessarily get your entire messaging on a piece of advertisement. A potential customer should be able to identify based on your logo what it is that you do and have really very little questions about what it is that you do. So you really want to make sure that that logo can stand on its own and that it's unique. And when you go through this logo designing process, if you haven't already, or if you're redesigning your logo, make sure you get someone on your side that, that's what they do. They specialize in helping people identify the things that I've just previously mentioned and combining all of that into a design of your overall logo. So you really can't have a brand without a logo, or a logo without a brand. They really do go hand in hand. And your logo, in fact, helps you build your overall brand. And it's really a key to a cohesive, meaningful representation of your company. And if you get these two things working together, your brand as well as your logo, you're really going to be putting yourself in a position to consistently get leads for the foreseeable future, as well as to retain business from loyal clients over and over. So that's going to do it for this episode of ContractorCast. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any upcoming episodes as we discuss more and more marketing topics as they relate to home service contractors. If your brand identity needs some attention, be sure to reach out to us either through our website or by giving us a call. We'd love to talk these things out with you and see if there's anything that we can do to help. Thank you. Have a good day.